everything in this fight. And it's just Chachi, and he's getting barbecued down to 0.
Really going ham, gets the triple kill, looking for the quadra, gets it on the edge.
Welcome to Berlin for this Saturday evening full of European League of Legends goodness. Tonight, the EULCS Spring Split continues as 4 more teams fight to climb towards the top of their groups. And earlier, we saw ROCCAT getting ready for the first match of the day, as well as their opponents in Splyce, Betsy, seemingly relaxed, and Yamato, always with a smile on his face. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Eve Schok, supporter, joined by Mitch Kreppel-Voorspoels. They let the Belgians take over. It's going to be amazing.
It's going to be a Belgian desk ready to give you the quality analysis.
Ja, het wordt super. Now,
Kwaliteit.
Here is how the teams stand after nearly 2 weeks of cross-group play. In Group A, we have G2 Esports solely in the top of the table, but in Group B, H2K and Unicorns of Love share first place.
Yeah, they share first place in terms of series wins, but obviously there's a different win-loss record, and that's why H2K currently is in first place. What's interesting to note about the standings is that there's a clear division in terms of tiers. You have G2 Misfits in kind of tier 1, then Fnatic. Same with Splyce in Group B, they're on a tier of their own, and then you kind of have the bottom tier teams. So we kind of can see how playoffs are going to be, roughly, which 6 teams are going to make it, but in terms of who's first, second, and third in the groups, still rough to see.
Still, that's interesting. Yesterday, we were talking to the Fisho and Sven about this, how it's actually already pretty much set in terms of the top of the table who'll be going to playoffs, and sadly, also for those bottom tier tables, it's very difficult.
Yeah, but it's very important to not end last, because that ends you up in relegation. So and there's only 1 win or 1 series win difference between these teams here at the bottom of the standings. So it's going to be very interesting, especially later on in the season, or with some of the weeks remaining in cross-group play, what's going to happen exactly there.
Yes, and yesterday, as expected, clean 2-0s from teams that needed to keep delivering on their level. Misfits versus 2-0 rather versus Vitality. Some clean games and one of the best macro games I think we've seen all split.
That's a nice way to spin it. Not much was happening in the early game, but it was calm, collected. They robbed their opponent's Vitality of any semblance of hope to actually win the series, especially with the game 1. It was clean, it was clinical. The fans kind of enjoyed it once the first blood finally happened. Game 2 was almost as clean as well, so Misfits, they're looking on point.
Yeah, they made a statement, and H2K versus Giants, they won, but they didn't shout very loud for their statement.
Yeah, a statement was made, but in small cursive letters maybe, so not as profound as the Misfits games. But in the end, all what matters is that H2K take the victory. They know where they need to improve in terms of kind of cleaning up. We saw some banter tweets from Odawane afterwards, so they're not too opposed to how kind of the series went down, but it's clear that they haven't refined the clean kind of closing style that Misfits have.
Yeah, it might come and bite them in the behind if we go a little bit further for H2K and they have those important matches. But for now, it's working perfectly. They closed it out. And today's games are, of course, also very important for the teams with their eyes on playoffs. And at the end of today, we'll also be at the halfway point in spring, so the time is ticking. Today, we have 2 best-of-3s coming your way. Splyce versus ROCCAT up first. And finally, Fnatic will be taking on Origin. It's much like last week's Saturday games. They should be pretty clear-cut, but you never know.
Yeah, very similar in both matchups in terms of that it's a 3rd-place team from one group versus the 5th-place team from the other group. So in that sense, there's a large skill disparity. That should mean that it should be a quick 2-0. But if you look at Splyce versus Fnatic, that series in itself, it was messy. Like, Fnatic's drafting was horrible. There was misplays from Splyce. Splyce could have easily lost that series, for example. So in that sense, there is still hope, especially, I think, for ROCCAT to maybe get an upset.
There is, and we'll see what they can do versus Splyce in that first matchup of the day. I said it looks clear, but there could be openings here for ROCCAT. They have their struggles, but where do you see them finding maybe an opening?
Yeah, they have their struggles, so let's define them first of all. ROCCAT, they're struggling most, especially in the early game, because their goal differential at 10 is the lowest of any team in the league right now, and that is so problematic from them, especially if you look at how it comes to be. They're like somewhat even on objectives usually. They're okay in CS, but they just die a lot and they don't get any kills in the process. So they're essentially getting slaughtered in the early game. And then when it does look better, like in this game versus H2K, they actually had a great early game. Stuff like this happens. Hjarnan, full vision, flash up, heal up, dies to an arrow from nuclear. Like, this can't happen on pro play because that game went from like seemingly close, maybe there's hope for ROCCAT, to, okay, instant stomp.
Yeah, definitely. And Splyce hasn't had the best early game either, so that might be an opening for them. And in general, Splyce, definitely not any consistency there yet. Definitely not the best Splyce we've ever seen. And as you said, that game versus Fnatic, or that match versus Fnatic, could have easily gone the other way 2 days ago.
And at least they realize it. Segux on the desk also said if it wasn't for one of the final Kled ultis, not this one, but the one that happened in the mid lane, Fnatic could have easily won that game still, because essentially SOAS ended up throwing it. But there was a lot of defining moments in this series that could have made it swing either way. A lot of work still to do, especially if these teams are looking to challenge the two teams above them respectively in their groups.
Because now it looks like Splyce might very well make it to playoffs, but it doesn't look in this form that they could do a lot there.
Yeah, they need to get some growth in there. One of the problems with Splyce is that they really got rolling in Summer Split 2016 due to like great communication and team play. They weren't marked as the most high-performing, strong individual members, but they had really solid team play and communication. And it seems like they took a step backwards, and every single team around them took a step forwards, and that's really creating this disparity.
And on top of that, it actually means that it is extra important that they win matches like this, because of the cross-group play, you get to play versus another team that is in the lower tier and should be, in theory, easier for you, and you should take that chance.
Yeah, it's really important to put yourself further ahead from the teams below you to win these matches, as opposed to catching up on the teams ahead of you. They're so likely going to beat the likes of ROCCAT and Giants and Origin as well, so you probably won't match them there. But like, you at least need to equalize that and then hope maybe take a game off the other teams in your group.
All right, we'll see. Prediction-wise, you're leaning towards
I'm going
Splyce.
for a 2-0, 2-0 both series, but I wouldn't be surprised, and I would like to see some upsets.
All right, we will see what happens. The players are almost ready for their picks and bans for Game 1, so let's send it over to our casters.
Oh, hello there, everybody. How's it going? Thanks so much, Shucks. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome. We are getting ready to finish off the final sets of games here in Week 5. I'm Devin Pyretex Young. He's James Stress O'Leary. But let's not waste any time, Stress. Let's get right into the meat of it. Let's run down the rosters. Starting in the blue corner, it is going to be Splyce, which means it'll be Wonder in the top lane, Trashy on jungle, Senkooks in mid, Kabi and Mickey X are that bot lane, and their coach, Yamato Cannon.
Yeah, of course, Splyce picked up one win earlier on this week. We'll see if they can keep their streak alive, and the second win for the week, it is their opponents in the other side, on the other hand. It is ROCCAT. They haven't played yet this week. In the top lane, it's Faxi. In the jungle is Maxlaw. Mid lane is Betsy. AD carry Hjarnan. Support Wooded. And their coach is Grabs. I'm going to stop trying to take lessons from Dr. Seuss, because that didn't work out.
Sometimes you just can't rhyme in time. It's okay, man. Rough for ROCCAT, though. I mean, it's such a challenge for this team right now, because they're trying to climb their way out of the relegation zone, but they have Splyce, who have found a little bit more consistency. I think it is a very slow climb for them. I was talking about on the analyst desk. It's not been the cleanest of games. Long series a couple days ago. That final game went all the way to 45 minutes. And honestly, they're going to have to find something different.
Yeah, I mean, both of these teams coming into the week, you could say, actually were struggling considerably. And we even, when looking at this matchup on paper, we're thinking maybe ROCCAT, this is one of the games that they have a chance to actually take. A winnable one, right? But I think Splyce, with a bit of a, not necessarily a good, strong statement, but a win over Fnatic.
It was some kind of statement. I'm not sure what it said, to be honest.
It just kind of highlights that, again, it's Splyce's favor. But ROCCAT, you heard the analyst desk talk about it. They got a bit of a weak early game, maybe later on into the game. That's some of the time that we've seen teams, falter against ROCCAT. So it's an interesting one. It's certainly not exactly the most straightforward head-to-head matchup.
No, that's
like
true.
G2 unicorns, or everybody's like, this is super hype.
You've got different strengths in the teams as well, and different weaknesses. Like if you look at, let's go for example into the jungle matchup, because that I think is one of the things where it could be an X factor for ROCCAT, because Trashy is just, this is not his meta. This has not been his split.
And honestly, it's a different role to where he was succeeding. Earlier on in 2016, it was a lot more to do with supporting your lanes, making sure that you could at least counter gank at any opportunity. But for Trashy, this split, he has to be in the lanes. He has to be trying to desperately get his laners ahead and snowball. And honestly, that's where he struggled. And I'm looking now to see if he can do any better against Maxlor.
Yeah, Maxlor, for his part, you know, there was a lot good to say about him transferring onto this ROCCAT team from Giants when he had a lot of success or relative success on that team in previous splits. But even though he's been fairly heavy in being around the laners, it just hasn't panned out as well. So maybe that changes. But either way, we're going to pick some bans. And it's Varus taken off the board for Splyce as we get into game number 1.
Seen this fairly often in Europe here, the Varus ban. Shen has also been a big blue side ban. This is not high enough priority to first pick, but a lot of teams are taking it away. LeBlanc remains a red side ban in this game, but we've seen it a couple of times get through the picks and bans. We saw it for Splyce earlier this week. No longer the case as it's off the board today.
So LeBlanc's removed, and then the Camille. ROCCAT sticking to the standard. We have seen some changes on 7.3 here in Europe, but this time around we won't in the pick and ban so far. Splyce, last one to them. It's going to be the Graves ban.
So with Graves banned away, Rengar, you have to start wondering, will it be the first pick on this rotation? It has come through the bans and pick phase a couple of times. North America we saw come through last night as well. ROCCAT, I'm wondering where they're going to go with the Jace taken off the board, leaves Splyce with pretty much one large power pick, unless Jin is going to be the pickup. I think ROCCAT will pick up Jin if Rengar's taken here from Splyce.
All right, well, that is the Rengar. We'll see if ROCCAT decide to answer back. Curious to think if maybe this is something that ROCCAT said, that's fine. You know, we're not going to worry about it too much if Trashy can play it because he hasn't had that much impact early on. And ROCCAT, they answer with the Shen on their side.
Yeah, every time Shen has made it to first rotation, red side here on Europe on 7.3, it has been picked up as the first rotation. This Rengar is going to force Trashy to do a lot more in the lane, but we didn't get the Jin pickup. Splyce, I mean, you got to look now, will they give it to Kobe here?
Yeah, they did opt for the Karma instead, so that's going to give over the Jin. A lot of power picks have been shuffling around now, and well, they're going to lock the Rumble, and that's not going to be a flexible pick since the Rengar's already taken.
And this is what red side first rotation Shen does. It forces the Rumble here, because otherwise it gets banned in phase 2, and you run out of good damage-based matchups. You end up playing tank into tank, and there's that weird moment where Wonder just has to go, okay, well, I guess I'm sitting back this game. But with the Karma locked in for ROCCAT, obviously putting some focus down onto the bottom lane. Jungle, I imagine, is where they're going next.
Would make a lot of sense. So the Lee Sin is locked for Maxlor. It's something he's played a couple of times so far this split.
And again,
second ban phase.
This now is a pick that they have to pick because otherwise Lee Sin gets banned away. You know, those high priority junglers that remain. Graves already off the board. So for now, ROCCAT can target away the supports from Mickey with the Thresh ban they have already, whereas Splyce can look at the 80 carry pool and the mid lane if they want to.
Banning the Zed away right now. So Splyce have removed that option. See if ROCCAT continue to pinch the support pool and make it harder and harder for Mickey X. The Tom Kench, something he had a lot of success finding picks on in the past, was banned. Well, see if he goes back to the Bard even. That's been something he's been not prioritizing lately, but
it has
was a big
been.
proponent of it before.
We've also seen a ton of Nami when Karma has been played as well. So we'll see whether Mickey goes over to that pick that other people have been playing. Will it be mid lane priority here with something like a Syndra or a Cassiopeia ban coming out from Splyce? Orianna is another blind pickable mid laner we've seen a couple of times.
It's the Sivir instead. Since ROCCAT have yet to pick their AD carry, Splyce are trying to limit the options that they have for themselves and reduce the run at you comp potential.
And it's really worked well for a lot of teams that have struggled. Get that Sivir, Hyunan's done very well. So the Corki mid lane likely pick up here from ROCCAT. We do have a little bit of time. I don't expect Corki to be in the AD carry role here for Hyanan, but obviously he does have that flex potential if ever. It's just stronger from the mid lane.
And Splyce have elected to take a much more protection style support. The Braum is locked in. Not unheard of. We've seen it a handful of times with the support pool pretty much drained at this point. See what the final pick is for them. Looking for a mid laner. They'd already banned several out themselves. And wouldn't be surprised to see that Cassiopeia end up in Senko's hands, and it is.
And now what does Hyanan give us for the AD carry? Because Civ is gone. Is it Caitlyn that he defaults to now? Ashe is available, but the play rate has kind of fallen through the floor.
Oh, that's different. The Tristana's
Okay.
locked in. You know, Tristana did receive some minor buffs on this patch as well.
Yeah, very minor buffs for Tristana. Obviously a later game scaling, but the key thing, push potential. Look at it. Tristana, her biggest strength, get up to the tower, put the explosive charge on, tick it down, blow up the tower. With Karma, with Tristana, they're going to try and push out and Splyce. They've got a fairly defensive setup. Jhin, Braum, yes, you can go aggressive onto it, but there's a lot of mobility here in this bottom lane. With Tristana, with Karma, theoretically shouldn't get picked off. For Splyce across the board, though, high magic damage from the top half of the map. Rengar can pretty heavily snowball something like a Cassiopeia, but up against a Corki, difficult to get into that lane.
Yeah, seems like the game plan for ROCCAT's going to be trying to stay safe in that mid lane, keeping the protection ready for the bottom side of the map and see if they can make that one work. There's been a lot of struggles for ROCCAT, but they've had a creative pick ban phase this time around as Yamato Cannon gives his team a little bit of last-minute pep talk. They're walking off the stage. Grabs looks a little less confident, but to be fair, he's had a lot of tough times as of late.
He has. I do quite like the ROCCAT draft in some senses where you're looking at strong side lanes. You got the Shen, you got the Corki. You can siege down towers very effectively. Tristana, Karma, Lee Sin can all disengage as well. So there's a fair amount of mobility now for ROCCAT. Splyce are going to have to try and get fights started utilizing this Jhin, this Rengar, this Rumble. See if they can catch ROCCAT out.
I think you hit it on the head. The Rengar is going to be critical in the early game, and you know it's a lot of trust to put into Trashy, who just hasn't had the biggest impact in Splyce's early games for a long time, in all honesty. And you know we see these carry junglers coming up to prominence. It's not been something he's looked particularly comfortable on.
No, it really hasn't recently, so I'm looking forward to seeing, can he get into the lanes? Can he snowball effectively? Because Splyce, they're going to need it.
Well, I got good news for you, Stress. We're about to find out because we are taken to the Rift. Let's lock and load onto it. Here we go, Splyce versus ROCCAT.
And instantly, as we get into game, one thing a little bit different, started noticing some of the AD carries starting boots. A little bit more sustained mobility against some of the supports that we've seen now that supports like Malzahar have a little more trouble. But this game, longsword start for Cobby, trying to get that first back for lethality items fairly quickly. And Kyanan, he's not so concerned about sustain, he's just concerned about pushing. Pushing isn't really under pressure from this Braum, from this Jhin, so they just taking the Doran's Blade, trying to just get towards that BF sword first. That long sword isn't really that lethality item route for Tristana traditionally. Normally you're looking for the Infinity Edge, Hurricane, that type of setup.
Yep, want to be able to Shrek those things down, the towers and the minions alike. Talked about in a lot of other regions, we've been seeing things like Ziggs come up, and even as far back as 7.1 to be able to wreck towers early, but it's a different kind of explosive Yordle in the bottom lane this time for ROCCAT. See how he does with Wadid's Karma.
We've seen a bit of an interesting start. Senkuk's actually helping over the wall right now for Raptors, I believe, or looking to. We'll see whether that's actually where they start out. Trashy could, of course, go down to red. Seen a couple
One
of
auto
uniques.
attack. That's helping,
Yeah.
right?
Well, Senkuk's, he does have Twin Fang. The audience love the one auto attack help.
Yep. That's the solo queue. I'm helping.
So he's looking for a level 2 fairly quickly, and then will swing over to red. Didn't actually use his smite on that, so maybe looking for a quick move towards mid or to the bot side. We'll have to watch Trashy's pathing again. He's a jungler that has struggled to get into the lanes.
This is true. And a lot of pressure is going to be on Trashy to try and make that happen this time around. He has a lot of damage potential. He's got good burst. He's got his red buff on as well, so he can get a nice little slow offense and burn, but where he focuses is something we're going to have to keep watch over. Maxlor, for his part, has definitely spent more time with his team in the early stages of the game, and he's on a champion like Lee Sin that can similarly have an early game impact. Let's take a look up top, because Faxi and Wonder, oh, they're going to trade. It's still a wet noodle fight for a few moments, as Wonder doesn't quite have the damage out just yet, and he suffers a bit. He'll be able to regen up, though, because he's got a Doran shield.
It's Rumble into Shen, right? We're not seeing the rejuvenation beads start. We're not seeing anything like that out of Faxi because he has to respect the damage in the lane. Most Rumble versus tank matchups go this way. Rumble kind of takes a bit of a lead early on. And you can see already a high priority on the lower side of the map, though, from ROCCAT, trying to scatter Trashy. 2 early wards along that back dragon corridor, just trying to get any eyes they can on Rengar.
Yeah. Definitely focusing on this bottom side. I think that's the definite game plan for ROCCAT here. Faxi can hold on in this mid, even if he's going to be losing out for a while. In this top, I should say. The mid should be able to hold on, too. I mean, it's a priority for Betsy on this Corki. He doesn't have to be the big carry, but he's still going to spike hard in the mid game.
Yeah. So far, no impact from junglers at this point already. In a handful of games on 7.3, we've seen junglers in lanes like Jankos is level 2 ganking.
Yeah.
A lot of early game action.
Neither of these junglers are Jankos, let's be real here.
That's fair. That is very, very fair. But I'm interested to see how this Tristana does. We haven't seen too much. As you alluded to, a little bit of a buff for Tristana on 7.3, and I highlight very small buff. It was only a minor addition to her rapid fire, the Q, the auto attack steroid that comes on that you end up maxing later on into the game. So realistically,
that's not huge.
Not a massive buff at all.
I was happy about it because I just play weird AD carries anyways, but that's a whole nother story. Yarnan's actually going to be able to get some harass on. He does manage to find explosive charge on to Kabi, trying to dodge away from damage. Return fire here so far, not doing too bad, but it's fairly even in the farm game. Trashy looking to come around the side, pick off on Betsy, but still sitting on his Valk, still has his flash, and Maxlor's coming to the party too.
Yeah.
Gonna get used.
Well, Senkux there kind of moved forward in this lane, isn't running Ghost. So what that means is old Ghost, you could just Ghost through the phosphorus bomb, but ever since the changes, it's a lot more difficult. The key thing is, Trashy, this ward that he's stepping over now was the exact ward that showed him heading into mid lane, and Betsy just played safe. That's one thing that we haven't seen all that often is, you know, Betsy staying alive through the early game. There's been a lot of focus from Betsy, from Maxlor around each other. And it hasn't always paid off, so this time playing it safe, heading back to base.
Playing very safe, two Doran's blades now that he's completed. And he grabs himself a null magic mantle to try and prevent a little extra damage from Senkux.
That's a really interesting one. Double Dorans instead of the long sword to go with the null magic for the Hex Drinker. Wanting a little bit of health in the lane, a little bit of sustain extra. Gets that control ward just to keep vision control around his lane. Trashy's coming to the bottom side, though.
See if they get the bait off right now. Yarnan steps far forward. He might be caught out. Exhaust is on, but he rocket jumps to safety. And what did was there with the last of his mana, spending on a leash. Trashy throws out the bullet strike, but it won't land on anybody.
But that's just how, you know, influential this defensive capability for Hyanan is. They need to stay in lane for a few more CS, at least another wave, in order to go back for BF Sword. Otherwise, it's an imperfect back time for this bot lane. It's only at, like, this point now, they've got 1,300, so they need to be able to afford health potions, control wards, you name it, they need it in the bot lane. Whereas Cobby, he's already gone back. Picked up the dirt, picked up the boots. They have the sustain there. You could see earlier on in the laning phase, Cobby had traded his health potions away for a slight CS lead in order to contend with Hyanan trying to push with Wadid.
Cobby and Mickey X. Honestly, I think it's fair to say that they've been highlights of the Splyce team during this split so far because there hasn't been as much big impact. Maybe Wonder, you could argue. Senkux has had a couple carry games, but they've been very consistent on champions like this Jhin. Cobby's had some really solid plays, and I am a little worried with unorthodox champion choices, how Yarnan and Wadid are going to work together against this, but the bottom lane is not going to be full of action for a while.
I like this from Mickey, though, heading up through the jungle, trying to just look around mid, try and find anybody that is warding. Trashy, that ward that spotted him out earlier, actually died next to him, so they know there's that high priority on vision control. They get the vision behind Wadid now as he comes into the jungle. They will know Maxlor's there, so they cannot contest. But ROCCAT getting deep vision control, and Splyce are aware.
This is nice to see. 7 minutes into this game, it has been very, very close. Splyce getting a slight gold edge just off farm differential, but ROCCAT are making proactive plays. They're trying to stop Trashy from doing anything cheeky in this bottom side. Unfortunately for them, he's up top in their jungle.
And that all comes from the ward from Mickey. And look, now Cobby and Mickey going in, trying to defend on the red. Both teams have a good read exactly of where the enemy junglers are because of the vision control. But Cobby and Mickey, good little reaction to try and make sure Trashy actually gets ahead on this buff count here. Trashy did secure the red buff. Maxlor couldn't get in for the red of his own because of that defensive play from Splyce.
So he's only going to have to settle for the Raptor camp for the time being. Still, a lot of attention paid for ROCCAT towards this bottom side of the map. The Mountain Dragon is the one on the map. Could be the priority for this ROCCAT team, but they're going to have to survive for a while. Yarnan looked like for just a second he could get caught, and in fact he does. The Deadly Flourish is up, the big bullet lands, and now Cobby's having to reload, and Mickey X steps in front just in time before they blow him back with a Buster Shot flashing forward. Will not be enough with the help of the heal from Yarnan. Cobby makes a big play, and he opens the curtain call, says, "You got an ult, so do I." But he has to cancel it because Maxlor is coming.
Yeah, instantly cancels upon seeing the jungler crossover award. Splyce picked a little bit too late in this phase to try and trade, trying to flash onto Hyanan. They got the root down. The problem is Wadid was already there. Wadid had spent so much time out of the lane with Cobby and Mickey that Cobby and Mickey were like, okay, maybe we can trade. The problem is they were too late. Couldn't get onto him, couldn't lock down Kjanen in time, expended quite a few summoners, and only got the heal in response.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty predictable to see how much Cobby and Mickey, and actually both Yarn and Woodid spend a lot of time together. They really rarely leave this lane, and the supports especially really rarely go on a roving spree, despite what you saw with Woodid in the jungle just a moment ago.
Yeah, and that's a big change-up for ROCCAT. I mean, you've also got to look at, like, Woodid's coming in again to the mid lane here. The focus on vision around mid has been such a priority for ROCCAT so far that, I mean, Kjanen's just been bot side on his own this entire game. Very big departure from ROCCAT's normal play, which put them at, the 10th ranked team for amount of time spent together. That's the highest amount of time.
Yeah, it's definitely a different style that we're seeing from this ROCCAT team, and we talked about at the beginning of the game, we might need to see ROCCAT mixing things up if they want to beat this Splyce squad. Well, I do like the pickup of Tristana. A little more self-sufficient in that bottom lane because it's a little easier to clear those waves through as long as you don't get caught.
Oh, Trashy, speaking of
getting caught,
getting
yeah.
caught, he's looking to have Faxi get caught up.
I mean, he's healthy enough at this point. He's still got Flash as well. I don't know if it's advisable to dive a Shen when he's got his Shadow Dash up and available under tower.
At the same time, though, you're attacking the global. You're looking for the one limb out on its own so that you can take that off, make sure that Maxlor isn't in the radius to actually capitalize. The same with the bot lane. It's Kjanen and Woodid. They're together now. I misspoke before. I said they were 10th ranked team. Got my numbers mixed up. They're actually the 3rd highest ranked team for AD carry and proximity.
Staying together, rather.
Yeah, exactly.
But this time they did depart from it a little bit, so not too afraid to move about just a little bit. Speaking of moving about, Trashy in the bottom side, and Suncook's actually is hanging around here too, but with Betsy and Maxlor trying to take out the jungle, there's a lot of Splyce boys stacked up down here. Nothing's going to come of it just yet. Maxlor and Betsy, though. Betsy's got a package. They're going to look to make a play.
Yeah, they're making a play on bot side because they have the Shen.
They go early. Special delivery, and it's an exhaust down onto Cobby. Faxi gets a taunt off. They focus for first blood, and it goes the way of Yarden. Well executed from ROCCAT, but can they make it out alive? The red carpet gets laid down by Wonder in the backside, but 5 members of ROCCAT standing firm together. In comes Senkux. He nails a big petrifying gaze, and he takes down Woodid before falling himself. Faxi's going to give his life here, and this has turned bloody. 3-2 so far in kills. Flashes for flashes. Yarden is going to get a buster shot. Double kill for Trashy before Yarden takes him out.
Wonder
it's not done yet. Harpoons for the ace.
Ace for Splyce. It looked like such a clean play out of ROCCAT to start. They get the Shen early. They dive onto the AD carry, take Cobby out. What could possibly go wrong? Wonder has a teleport available. Senkux was roaming down as well, and Splyce turned it all the way around. This setup theoretically is well done until you look at that ward there for the Rumble TP. They kind of neglect that Splyce can make the same play. And that means Wonder just gets an easy entry into this fight. Equalizer over 4 people completely splits the team up. Now you're caught between 2 towers, a Rumble, and a Senkux flashing over the wall to get that petrifying gaze down. And from there, ROCCAT just cannot survive through the rest of this fight. It's good Kjanen ends up getting another kill on Trashy after this little phase, but still, ROCCAT come out behind on this one.
Oh, and then Yarden, I don't think he was getting out of that one alive anyways, but Mickey X was making himself look tasty. All the same, that could have gone a hell of a lot worse for ROCCAT, and I think Splyce had to be pretty happy with the fact that even though it started with a death from them, they were managing to turn it around. So 12 minutes in, the gold game is actually still only 1,000 in Splyce's favor. Nobody's tried to contest that Mountain Drake because, well, nobody's been up after a big play.
Yeah, I do, however, want to take a moment to kind of praise ROCCAT over some of the improvements they made coming into this. Like, their whole control on the bottom side and then translating it into a play is a significant improvement for them, but they might be caught out on the top side here.
Oh, Fax is going to Shadow Dash. Trashy hops in, and there's a flash spent. Maxlor was there for the defense, but the Sonic Wave doesn't land on Trashy. That's the end of that for now.
Yeah, just neglecting the opponent's teleport and the roaming potential of Cassiopeia.
Usually a bad idea to do.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we got a poke fest in the bottom side. Senkux is going to be caught by Betsy. That burst damage is real. Petrifying gaze, but in comes Maxlor, tagging his way to a kill.
And this is good follow-up from ROCCAT as well. I mean, they come towards mid lane, knowing Senkux used his exhaust on Maxlor in the last fight, and the flash is down. Now Maxlor wants to trade with Trashy.
Oh boy, he really wanted to go deep on that one. So he manages to find some damage, but he takes some as well. Shots are flying. Maxlor is trying to dodge. 2-step. The last shot is enough, and Cobby claims a kill.
Maxlor Not really able to dodge everything as the Blind Monk, waiting to hear that whistle through the air. But honestly, Splyce, this has been a good way of recovering over the last couple of minutes. It's back and forth from both teams. Splyce seemed to be a little bit better on the reactive stance, where ROCCAT make a play and ROCCAT stick around too long. Mid lane, Maxlaw gets the kill. They move into the enemy jungle. He trades against Trashy and then still stays in the jungle. So ROCCAT, some things are good, but they're overstaying just too often.
Yeah, it's been a little bit rough, but I still like this proactive ROCCAT team, like trying to make these big plays, trying to force Splyce to react a little bit, and it seems to have caught them off guard, even though they have the reaction time to really manage it for the most part. But at 14 minutes into this game, I mean, it could be a very different story right now. ROCCAT are looking to push every edge they have on this bottom side of the map. A lot of vision invested around this Dragon Pit as well. I think it'll be very crucial who's going to be able to secure it.
It's a fairly important thing to note, though, that Tristana's tower pushing potential on the bottom side is fairly different to Varus. When you push up to the tower, you're not poking down the opponent at the same time. You're just kind of clearing the minions and then moving up, putting the satchel charge on and moving back away. It's not like Varus, where you've basically killed your opponent behind the tower and they are forced to concede the room. So that's why ROCCAT haven't really been able to convert things into a tower until now, because now, look, Jin's backed away because Splyce, they're making the play topside. Splyce know they're on the faster route here to the tower, and despite being against such a tower-destructive champion, Splyce have come out with first tower blood.
So Splyce did in fact get the first tower, but it looked like ROCCAT were sticking around to see if they could make an additional play in the bottom side. It's not going to be the case. Instead, they might just settle for the Dragon. They nearly got a tower in the mid, though, and honestly, even with the first tower blood, with an important Drake like that, I think ROCCAT can be happy with this.
I think ROCCAT will be content with it, yeah. If they get the Mountain Drake, which they absolutely should, no one is around to steal. Hyeonin is also at his Infinity Edge as well, so Tristana needs that 3-4 items that we've seen out of later game carries to be effective in team fights.
First item Triforce, or Infinity Edge, excuse me.
Yeah, a lot of the time you'll see BF Sword into Hurricane for pure minion pushing potential. You kind of stack up that passive that just explodes on all of the minions, but Hyeonin opting just for flat-out damage now on his autos instead. I'm just going to take a quick look at what he's maxing. Fairly standard Emax into Qmax, so that explosive charge into rapid fire. Of course, you get the reset on the jump when you get kills or assists, so this is the mid lane play onto Senkux. ROCCAT get a good kill there, and if they get the vision and back away, I think this is fine, but Maxlaw chooses to now fight against Trashy, loses out the trade, and bot lane are already moving. He smites to try and get out on the Raptors, is moving already, but doesn't have any kind of escape tool available. And if he didn't trade against Trashy, this would have been a great play just to secure vision control, deny some of the focus on it, and you can see perfect angles. This is a dead-eye, dead shot straight through the jungle.
Yeah, Kabi, he's pretty happy about that, but overcommitment from ROCCAT, that's not the first time it's punished him. Doubt it'll be the last, and now Splyce with two members on the bottom side are looking to push into turret. It'll be yet another trade as ROCCAT have already moved up top, but it does seem like Splyce just have the slight edge in movements. See if they can get any more off of this one. Not a whole lot of minions, but Yarnan, he does have that pushing power. Almost all of ROCCAT are stacked towards the top.
That was super cool. I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting that replay to come in. That was pretty cool, but Splyce, they're doing
the technology stress.
A little bit of the unexpected. However, ROCCAT, they're going to try and trade, knowing the pushing power of Tristana, going to try and equalize with an inner tower.
This would be good for ROCCAT if they can do it. There's no reaction because Splyce had stacked so many on the mid, so it actually is going to be that trade. Let's see if they get out alive.
Yeah, they should get out alive here. The thing here when ROCCAT would normally get punished for doing this is if mid tower wasn't so low on Splyce's end as well. ROCCAT can fairly quickly push that down, so we're not going to end up in one of those situations where you're 35 minutes in and the enemy still has their mid tower up. ROCCAT should be able to capitalize on that. So this time, kind of pushing back where Wonder can be safe on the map on the top side is a fairly significant impact from ROCCAT. And honestly, I think these two teams are playing a little bit better than we were giving them credit for coming into the day.
Yeah.
This is a little cleaner than you would expect.
Oh, we talked about how Splyce has definitely been a little more on the up and up after their Fnatic win, but for ROCCAT, keeping pace and making these proactive plays, making these trades, this type of shot calling is not something that we've seen from this team so far. And now they've put the gold bang on even.
And there you go. That's exactly why ROCCAT were happy to take that trade of their mid tower, because they've got the inner tower. Betsy swings over, just 3 full auto attacks as everybody from Splyce had recalled, and there was no way to defend. So ROCCAT, they've had dragon control, they've had lower side control, and now they have top side control as well. Look at the vision through the jungle. 1 or 2 wards did just time out. They're going to swap it down for lower side vision to aim for the tower that sits behind Wonder right now. They're looking for a similar play again. Move up with the team, try and push it down. Wonder can clear it out too easily right now, though.
Yeah, Wonder's going to be a big part of this Splyce mid game right now, because on the other side, you have Betsy spiking pretty hard. You have Yarnan, who's still, he's not a huge AD carry yet. He is going to scale later into this game, but he's got that Infinity Edge, so he'll have a lot of damage to really play around with. I think it's going to be very on Wonder to be able to set up those big equalizers like we saw in the counter-engage down on the bottom side to make any skirmishes go Splyce's favor. Some
pretty important items as well for ROCCAT. Gives them decent timing now. Trinity Force, you were mentioning the Infinity Edge. Well, the Hurricane's there as well for Yarnan, so it's at this point where Splyce have to be careful taking fights. Trashy cannot run headlong into the enemy team, and I mean, finally Trashy has started putting up numbers on the board. It was a very slow start to this game. Trashy didn't even ult until like level 8.
We thought it was going to be another one of those stories where Trashy picks an early game carry, and then we're like, where is he for 7 or 8 levels? But
yeah,
he did start to have an impact, and it's been critical for Splyce to really start getting ahead in this game. But it's been very close. We thought it might be a close game, but it definitely has been, just maybe a different way than we could have expected.
Yeah, that's very true. So, as we look at it,
20 minutes
Baron
into this
has
game.
spawned, 20 minutes we passed.
It's a big marker there in Splyce. They have not had a lot of Barons themselves in the split so far, but the ones they get, they really get value out of them. Those are big Baron power plays.
Yeah, on average, a very high Baron power play. Of course, pushing down a bunch of towers. It's always one of those interesting things where if you've got a Baron power play where a lot of inner towers and outer towers still remain as Splyce.
Yeah, your numbers kind of
struggled.
get inflated a little bit, don't they?
You just take like 5 towers in a row.
Oh, look at how good we did with our
Great
Barons.
Great for Splyce.
To be fair, if you can get Barons when there's still outer towers available on the enemy team, you probably are swinging pretty hard.
That's the interesting thing is, like, I have a feeling a lot of that is because Splyce get the outer towers fairly easily, but the inner towers, before any inhibitor towers, they struggle with. They struggle setting up plays, trying to get in front of inner towers because it is difficult to do so. Here comes the fight.
Yeah, Yarnan was actually moving his way forward. Oh, the heal's already spent as the equalizer came down. Several shots, he's gonna have to burn his flash. No buster shot just yet. Maxwell having to flash back, and he's already got the shield from Faxi. So ROCCAT, they stepped too far forward. They got themselves caught, and once again, Yarnan gets his back canceled.
Yeah, gets the shield out, though. No chance. Wasn't low enough for any Deathfire touch. ROCCAT were very slow to react on that, and they lost a lot of summoners because of it. Faxi didn't ult in, Betsy wasn't quite roaming down in time, and you can see Splyce, all they used was Wonder's flash during that engage. They used the equalizer as well.
And the curtain call, yeah.
But those are all short cooldowns. They're coming back up.
It's a good investment, and right now Splyce, they're going to have the map control for the minute, which means this dragon should be pretty free for them. ROCCAT are going to have to back, go lick their wounds for a little while. This may not be the most important dragon with the Ocean. It does give some regeneration, so Splyce can find those team fights once again on the back half. Let's see what they can do now. 22 minutes into this game. The gold's still very close. 100 separating the two teams. Not something we thought we'd be saying.
No, that's very true. Although I wonder whether that gold gap is going to increase because Splyce have a fair amount of survivability on the key members.
Yeah, I mean, that's the critical thing, right? You have the big carries. You have ways to protect them on both sides.
And by that, I mean Edge of Night has been completed on Cobby. You've got a Braum to play defense. Senkux
and you've got
and
Senkux.
Trashy.
He's got the package, and he spends it looking for Trashy here. Throws the bull out. He's got his flash. Didn't want to use it, but he was forced to in the end. So ROCCAT play bullies, and they push Splyce away for just a moment, but now they're regrouping.
But they got Wonder's TP. That was a very awkward TP position from Wonder. Clearly, Splyce were very afraid of a full-on engagement from ROCCAT, and ROCCAT get the TP back out, don't lose anything else themselves. So kind of nice hesitation on that.
It's
in
a
a
good
positive way. In a positive way, ROCCAT say, okay, no, we don't need this fight. We don't need to force anything else. And they back themselves away. They now have full map control for like the next 2 to 3 minutes. They will have Stand United soon. They have teleport on Shen.
They need to stop this push, though, on the top tower. Splyce are looking to finish this one off, but Betsy's there, he's got the wave clear. The Krugs are even helping out. It's nice that ROCCAT can list some friends in the jungle, even with no Ivern on the team.
And all Splyce did, push both waves out in mid and top, and now they're recalling. So they actually didn't get any objective from it. They got map control, which is nice, around the back half of this Baron pit. But at the same time, like, no objective from it will be frustrating from Splyce because they use TP. Still 3/4 of that cooldown available.
I feel like you get a lot of pressure sometimes when you spend those cooldowns. You think, okay, now we have to make something happen. We have a small window. But it just wasn't happening. ROCCAT played back, played defensively well enough, and they were able to defend their towers.
Yeah.
So still holding on to all those inners. Splyce, they've lost one up in the top side. That was the trade with mid earlier on in the game. ROCCAT are looking to secure Baron vision. They've got the Scuttle Crab available, and they're stacking pretty heavily. Looking like they might be trying to march mini waves down the top lane, but there's no second tower for them to grab. Mickey could get caught, though. Taunt is up. It's a lot of damage, and they get the redemption out. Out goes Yarn, and ROCCAT jumps away, but that's left Faxi by himself right now as the curtain call opens up. Once again, the equalizer's there. Oh, Faxi's gonna have that shot intercepted by Maxlor. Senkuk's trying to make the play, but the snake gets kicked away. And now Maxlor's gone in for a second round, but it's not gonna be enough. And the Buster shot only knocks them back, and they're safe to push.
It looked like Mickey was out on his own, but so tanky with that unbreakable shield up that Hyeonan just wasn't doing enough damage to him. Splyce will get the first kill. They want to look to continue this.
Yeah, minions are running out right now, though, so they won't be able to keep pushing it. Just some more chip damage. They get the one kill into Maxlor. That was a really hectic fight for a moment. It looked like it was going to be all over for ROCCAT, but they managed to hang on by the skin of their teeth.
And you can see that it is difficult for Splyce to continue fights against this ROCCAT lineup. They have a lot of escape tools to get out of the fights. Maxlor kind of gave his life so that Faxi could survive.
That's a real bro jungler.
Yeah. At that point, you gotta wonder which is it actually more beneficial. If more people from ROCCAT would have died, Splyce potentially could have looked to the Baron, but Mickey this time.
Oh, Betsy, he's going all in, and he's bringing Faxi to the party. That's going to be just enough damage, even without the taunt landing. They take out Mickey X.
Oh, Mickey. In the last one, you were so fine, but on that time you had so many people around.
Did he blow your mind last time?
I was trying to get that in, but it just didn't work.
And now it's never leaving my head. Thanks for that.
No, I know, I'm sorry. But Mickey was not safe in the second position. You thought after the first time, okay, that's fine, I got out of the last one, but this time just could not survive, and it pushes Splyce back. Everything they just got from vision control is going to now be reduced. Their timing to utilize this control is reduced as well. They can't move out into the ROCCAT side of the map.
So Splyce still making a few mistakes themselves, and I sound like a broken record, but we got to go back into this. The gold is once again even. We look at the gold graph from this game, no matter how it ends, to be honest. In the first 26 minutes, it's been blips on the radar of changes, not huge in any way. And I mean, for Splyce, against a team like ROCCAT that is much further down in the standings than they are, that has to be worrying.
Yeah, it is. It is worrying. Another worrying thing for ROCCAT they have to be careful of, for Splyce, is that ROCCAT are going to have a fairly quick Baron.
Yeah, they have a lot of damage. I mean, this is the thing about a Tristani. Your objective, your ability to knock down objectives is very, very quick.
There's a Blade of the Ruin King coming soon as well for Hyeonan, which that will assist on that one as well. And the ability to kite, give a little bit of survivability with lifesteal. We have seen Rapid Fire Cannon on Tristana, who of course is the longest range AD carry at rank 18.
Yep, scales up with the passive.
But get that Rapid Fire Cannon, get 150 extra. Just means you can kind of three-shot anything from half a screen away, at least.
All right, top laners dueling each other out in the bottom side just to try and get those side waves pushing. Oh, Betsy steps right into Mickey X. He does dodge away from one shot, has to flash over another as the curtain call is getting intercepted by what did. That cooldown will be burned now.
But it was Splyce trying to force something on mid lane, see if they could get a kill, or at least push ROCCAT back, because they'd spotted Maxlor on Woods down in the bot side of the jungle. He was on his Gromp, so Splyce tried to just assume control, force away ROCCAT's potential
Maxlor's
push.
chasing. He's not going to be able to find Wonder, though, unfortunately, but Betsy might. Man, he has not been afraid to just Valk over walls this game. I do like the aggressive instinct from Betsy. Very experienced mid laner here in the European LCS, but I haven't really seen him have a star performance in a long time. Yarn's going to be able to easily take down this dragon, but everybody else is interested in the Baron right now. Splyce, they've got the vision control, but there's no way they can start this one up.
Yeah, they can't actually take it, so there's not too much of a threat for ROCCAT. They know that they can just get the dragon.
Yeah, and it's another Ocean Drake too, so they've matched it now for what Splyce has got. The next Dragon is going to be so much more impactful. That's closer to the time that you'd normally be seeing if Dragons were taken early on, the Elder Drake, but at 35 minutes, an Infernal is going to be huge for both these teams.
Yeah, it'll be a really nice boost of damage. I mean, you just saw the ROCCAT coaching staff on your screen a couple of seconds ago. I genuinely would say they seem to have improved this week on vision control.
Yeah,
like in the early game, it was you know, a fairly significant increase in my mind for ROCCAT. And, you know, previously they'd had tough early games. This game was a lot more even. Yes, a play of theirs backfired, but I'd rather that than, you know, some of the miscommunication we've seen from other lower teams in the standings like Origin, who don't even really seem to be trying on a lot of plays.
Yeah, I think it's nice to see that ROCCAT is growing, is recognizing the problems that they have, and as a lower tier team, it's so crucial to do that. You can see how their vision kind of stacks up right now. They have a fair amount of the bottom side of the map, but it is a bit dark in the Baron pit.
Yeah, exactly. But the key thing is on that Betsy still had a blue trinket available. I believe he now just used it in the back of the Baron pit. You just saw the animation complete. So ROCCAT were in no rush. As long as they could see somebody from Splyce on the map, it's a kind of position where ROCCAT aren't running to get to the Baron pit. It's when you're out of blue trinkets, out of wards, that's when you've got to be careful. Hyunan's is coming up soon as well. They have Stand United and Teleport, so for ROCCAT, they are prepared to play a bit of a waiting game, try and get this Tristana further along in the item build. Blade of the Ruined King is there now.
Yeah, looks like we are in for a good old European Baron dance. Splyce have opted into this one, and ROCCAT have said, why yes. We shall tango. Let's see what happens next. Splyce looking to try and collapse, overstepping. Perhaps ROCCAT right now. Mickey X leading the charge. There's a Glacial Fissure. Yarden's interrupted. Oh, but they're going to tag in and try to save his life. He goes down before they can even finish off the channel of anything. ROCCAT are just collapsing. Betsy and Yarden are getting collapsed on, I should say. Immediately melted through. Maxlor, it's going to be a goose chase here if Trashy can find him. Or if Trashy can't find him, I should say. That's 2 quick kills, but they were not ready for that.
Clearly ROCCAT don't subscribe to the Leave No Man Behind mantra because Yanan was on his own. Nobody was there to defend for him. We'll have to take another look. That's Splyce. I mean, we talked about a quick Baron from ROCCAT. They've got Cassiopeia. They've got a good amount of items on Jhin.
Yeah, ROCCAT can take a fast one too. Yeah, that's rough. I mean, it looked like he was just half a second too late to jump out, and, you know, credit to Maxlor tagging in to try and save him, and Faxi getting an ultimate off, but I mean, they had so much damage on Splyce's side, it just didn't matter. Redemption didn't come through in time. That was the big thing. You know, I mean, maybe it was all single target. It may not have been enough, to be honest, but big change for Splyce now.
They caught him even through the fight. He was running away, lots of people in front of him. Yanan just ended up dying. I'm sure we'll take another look at it, see exactly how it panned out, because he used his flash, he used his heal, he tried to jump.
Does that feel? That feels awful when you use everything, you still die. But one big mistake. Let's take a look at how it happened again.
So this was the setup from Splyce. You can hear the Rengar ult go off. Flash from Mickey into the Q. And they just get all of the damage down, lock him down off that passive. Yes, he flashed after, but Splyce has had way too much damage through everything in order to take him out.
Maxlor actually managed to get away too, so that was 2 quick kills. It really wasn't even much of a fight. Just one catch that turned into more. Now Wonder is getting kicked out by Maxlor. He's got the equalizer down. He's going to try to 1v4 and get another kill, but they tag in, and Wonder is blowing back to base.
But look at how much work he did. He dragged the rest of the team to the bot lane, so they get mid-inner with the Baron buff. They're going to get top-inner as well. Faxi has to be careful, otherwise he's going to get 5v1'd under tower, and we just saw how 4v1 went for Wonder, but Wonder did a good job of slowing down ROCCAT. It's going to be a recall and reset from Splyce after this.
First death of the game for Wonder, gives his life for a good cause. They secure the tower, so Splyce is sitting on 5 towers to the 4. It was a close gold game for a long time, but now it is 4,000 and some change in favor of Splyce, and with an Infernal Drake spawning next, it's looking better and better for them.
Exactly. I mean, Wonder, he's had a good game so far. A couple of key equalizers from this game. And as the Baron buff ticks on, now we're looking for that number, Pyra. 5,479 is their average Baron power play. They got 1:25 left. They just got themselves a bunch of extra gold in the lead. I want to know, are they going to break their average?
Well, it does seem to happen for them quite a lot to get a huge amount out of their Barons, even though they hadn't secured too many, but that was really all enabled by one big fight, one big mistake from ROCCAT. But can they hang on in this game on the ROCCAT side? That's what I want to know. This Dragon is going to be monumental if they can contest it somehow.
They also have very good late game when you look at this Tristana. That is, the last kill was a little bit of an unfortunate, I'm not going to say misplay, but turn of events for Hjanen and the rest of the team. He didn't get out fast enough and he was the first one to die. If ever your late game carry is the first one to die in a fight,
yeah,
you kind of lose
well
the fight. So I'm expecting we'll see a little bit more in the way of survivability, whether it's a QSS, whether it's a Bloodthirst, whether a McHale's comes out from within to try and keep him alive.
That's an interesting idea.
ROCCAT are going to be heavily reliant on Hjanen and Betsy to basically carry them through the last fights. And Betsy,
no, we've seen this one before.
Player.
He does use the package, and that tower goes down. Teleport on the minions now. Splyce have said, we want to keep on pushing down this bottom side. They've still got 9 seconds of Baron to contend with, or to move with, rather. ROCCAT have to contend with all this pushing power that they've got in their favor. Maxlor looking for a flank around the side, but it doesn't look like it's happening as the curtain call opens up. Redemption comes down to keep them healthy, but this tower is not going to get any benefit from that. Splyce want to open the base, and they manage it in. Yarnan nearly goes down in that one. Wunder still pushing forward. A redemption of Splyce's own. Yarnan burning low, and the carries just aren't doing enough damage as a double kill comes in for Kabi. Betsy is isolated on the other side. Splyce have just muscled their way into this base.
Yeah, it didn't look like Splyce were going to get too much until Hjanen stepped forward to try and clear the wave. Trashy jumped in with his ultimate running and takes most of his health bar off. Now they come back out.
Oh, Betsy, he's tenacious, trying. Look at those low health bars right now on Senkooks, on Wunder, on Mickey X. Splyce realized they can't end the game right here, right now. The death timers just aren't long enough yet. With Betsy playing the hero and keeping their base alive, but man, I did not think Splyce was going to be able to pull off that push.
But again, Hjanen in the fights is stepping too far forward. Honestly, they should have just conceded that tower and backed away. Fought perhaps over the inhibitor, depending on how Splyce moved in, but that's a second fight in a row that Hjanen has been out of position and easily capitalized on by
Betsy
Splyce.
too.
Yeah, this time it was Betsy, as you said, essentially at the beginning of the fight, dropping so low that they got forced away. So this tower now falls. ROCCAT are trying to fight, but they know that they can't without Corki. Betsy's still such low health that he has to back away. And watch Hjanen's positioning as he tries to clear this wave. Gives the respect initially, using the jump, and then moves forward to try and kill the range minions. Trashy jumps on him. He's so low on his health now that Hjanen is going to get taken out as soon as Wunder can, move forward. It's actually Jin that gets him in the fight. And from there, Splyces move in, and they completely crush through that first inhibitor of the game.
This is the target prioritization. Splyce definitely looking sharper in these fights, and honestly, it was all just Betsy trying to save the base at that point in the game. So the gold gap just keeps on widening right now. Splyce looking to end this game number 1 for them. They have quite a lot of items. As we mentioned at the beginning of the game, they're not the only ones with a big power spike towards the end of it, but they certainly have one themselves. And a lot of vision up top is going to make it hard for ROCCAT to get the jump on him right now.
Baron in 1 minute, though, means Splyce, they're just setting up vision control for now, unless ROCCAT make a mistake.
Wunder has just been so critical this game. It's not just been the equalizers, but he's been right up in the face of all of the ROCCAT carries, and it just seems that ROCCAT have not been able to do the same thing. They've not been able to get into the back line, and not without getting punished like Betsy is right now. One easy shot of the curtain call. That's a second. That's a third. And the channel from Faxi will not even complete.
Just another pickoff on the carries. What was this solid early game has been really sloppy late.
Maxlor gets a kickoff, but it was just on to Mickey X here, and now he's going to have to try and hightail it out back to his base. Not going to happen. Another kill, another tower, and for Splyce, it's looking like another win. What did is onto his fountain, but he just can't get it done. Faxi trying to distract the members of Splyce, but he's the last man standing, and I don't see that happening for much longer. He might get a bit of a heal off, but it don't matter a thing. Minions marching forward. Splyce looking to end this.
Splyce, they're going to take another win. First game of this series. Looked comfortable past 25 minutes.
It really did, but at the end of the day, Splyce, they have just managed to seal the deal. 37.5, and GG to them. 1-0 on the series.
Good way to close out the game for Splyce. A little bit perhaps underwhelming from ROCCAT as we went further in the game. The fact that just individual mistakes give the game away.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking, and I feel like a broken record because whenever I watch this ROCCAT team, it seems like they know what they need to do. They have good target prioritization. They have good objective control. They make moves around the map. But then stuff like that happens, and you cannot just give up your big carry and expect a team to not punish you.
Yeah, I go back to the early game and I think about it and I'm like, ROCCAT, they actually look a little proactive. Vision control, focusing on finding Trashy, stopping him from doing anything. And I'm like, okay, ROCCAT, maybe that's something to build off. And then Hyanan and Betsy step forward in 2 fights, 3 fights, back to back to back, and it loses the game for them. Everything that went well early game was just completely torn apart by just positioning errors in the late game.
And that's the thing you need to work on. We did compliment them a little bit for, fixing up some of the holes in maybe the strategy. I think their pick ban was actually quite creative. But Splyce, they kept it even, they kept it close, and then they blew the lead wide open. It was easy.
It was.
Well, for more on Splyce's Game 1 win, we're going to go ahead and send it over to the analyst desk to take it away.
Thank you so much, Pyra. I hear you mentioning creativeness on the side of ROCCAT in terms of the draft. And while it was pretty clear that Splyce won the draft, but ROCCAT, what did they get for their sacrifices in the end?
It depends on how you view it. I think many people will look at this draft and they will see Rengar first pick. Okay, that's obviously great. They see the Rumble matchup with Shen, which is a traditional counter. And then they see Jin picked up Varus Band and nothing else in return. And in that sense, yeah, Splyce, they won the draft. But ROCCAT, at least they came in with a clear goal this time. Their composition centered around basically pressuring the bot lane with a demolitionist like Tristana and a poke from Karma, and then getting the Shen ulti to kind of come in and solidify that advantage, and then take down 1 turret, 2 turrets, 3 turrets around the map. That's kind of their goal.
That is their goal, and you kind of know that at some point they're going to go somewhere and they're going to dive because they have a Shen, and the whole early game and the mid game is waiting for that moment to happen.
So the entire early game was centered out of this. We have the first kind of replay where it shows that ROCCAT eventually, they do pull this off. Splyce was fighting against it and was ready for it because it's such a telegraphed composition. You pick up the package on Corki, you push out mid with Max Lord and Betsy here together, and then you dive in. Kabe does not have flash right here, so this is the ideal kind of play pattern for ROCCAT to execute. The problem is it takes them too long in the game to do this, and more importantly, Splyce was ready. Look at how Wunder's already here at teleport. He's safely backed up by this tower around himself. Senkix comes over the wall with a 4-5-man ulti. Yeah, he drops, but the damage is done and the cleanup can happen. And for ROCCAT especially, I think they get outscaled a fair amount. So it's very important that they actually get advantages early with their composition, and this was not enough of an advantage.
So do you think Splyce saw this coming before it happened? Did they have the timer for the Corki package? Did they know, of course, the Shen can come in, and did they proactively diffuse this?
I mean, the Corki package helps, but it's not even necessary. You could, for example, earlier push up together Max Lord, Betsy in the mid lane and just walk down. The whole concept is it's kind of accelerated with the package. For the minutes Shen is level 6, you can, but we saw Splyce, take proactive moves as well to kind of alleviate the pressure as well. And then more importantly, Trashy was visiting his lanes very often to kind of stop them from being pushed in and allow this to happen. We have another clip of that we can show as well, where it's very obvious that Splyce is aware that they just need to survive the early to the mid game, and then they can start playing the late game like they did.
Yeah, we'll take a look at that replay in a second to show just how with the lanes that they drafted, you said, for instance, bottom lane is something that's going to be pushing hard, so Trashy does need to come around mid and bottom to kind of take away some of that pressure.
This mid lane is a skill matchup, but it's so much easier if you want Cassiopeia to get her tier. You just group, you push out, you reset the pressure. You don't give this high ganking jungler pre-6 any possibility on Max Lord's Lee Sin, while your Rengar is ramping up 2-6. Here again, this gank is not meant to kill. You're playing versus Tristana Karma. All they need to do is get this lethality abuser in Jin to base, so he can then get stronger, so to avoid exactly that. Imagine if Trashy doesn't visit this lane, Shen gets 6, ports down, Corki comes down, they both fall, they lose a turret. And then the second phase is, this is actually after the play happened. Splyce are roaming around the map, and they're basically cross-mapping ROCCAT. They say, ROCCAT, you can get the right side, we take the left side, then we swap it around. They never group up to fight a turret where the 2-man bot lane fights the 2-man bot lane plus Shen ulti. So they essentially delayed the game very often by swapping objectives and then eventually taking mid lane turret and making the map very big to then control it much better later on.
And they had their head in the game the whole time. The gold was even, but you did have the feeling that Splyce had the control and knew when to pull the trigger.
I think it's a good point because gold doesn't always indicate pressure, because very early on you had this Karma Tristana pushing the turret all the time, but once these early turrets were gone, and not only gone, they were traded evenly, so there was no advantage on ROCCAT, then obviously you saw Splyce kind of crawling back into the game, slowly controlling it. You could argue they could have made their picks a little better, but in the end it was ROCCAT fighting against a massive kind of vision loss.
It was, and here is where Splyce can...
Yeah, they kind of sealed the deal here, because just look at the map. Like, the Baron area is completely dark. The whole reason we're slowing this down is just to see... It's so dark for ROCCAT, they're considering, like, where do we go from here? Like, do we face sec? They get a brief glimpse of vision, and then suddenly Splyce, instead of
They're all
baiting,
there.
they suddenly engage, and ROCCAT is so not ready for this. Yarnin gets caught again. He drops. Shenalty doesn't even land. So the Splyce was just waiting for a good moment to pull the trigger, and ROCCAT, nobody wanted to face check. This composition has no engage. If you look at Lee Sin, Karma, Tristana, none of those champions, and Lee Sin, none of them can engage. Lee Sin can flank, but to flank, you need somebody to hold the attention in the front, Lee Sin to walk around. The Shen was always on a side lane, but he was pushed in because of the Rumble very often, so it was very easy for Splyce to control the mid to late game, and ROCCAT should have gotten an advantage early if they want to play a comp like this.
And these are the type of wins that even with an advantage early, we've seen yesterday, it's very hard for the kind of lower tier teams to break through what is the macro plan, and it's
Yeah.
also very frustrating.
I mean, they knew the plan is just, it's so one-dimensional.
Yeah.
This comp is only built around pushing bot lane and then diving with Corki, or maybe later on getting Corki package plus
But it's what
Shenalty
you
to
want,
make
right?
picks.
A simple plan?
Yes, I think it's exactly what you need to do. And that's why the game was so even. And I think when things get harder and 1-3-1 gets involved and there needs to be a lot of communication, I think ROCCAT will fall apart much faster. The problem is they're just a tier below Splyce.
They are, and Splyce took the victory. We're going to lane swap into a break for a few minutes, but when we come back, we will have game 2 between Splyce and ROCCAT.
My boys, chill out a bit, relax your body, and just focus on your breathing, yeah?
3-2 so far in kills. Flashes for flashes. Yarnin is gonna get a buster shot. Double kill for Tragedy before Yarnin takes him out. Shots are flying. Max Lore trying to dodge. 2-step. The last shot is enough. And Kabi claims the kill. Yarnin's interrupted. Oh, but they're gonna tag in and try to save his life. He goes down before they can even finish off the channel.
Splyce, they're going to take another win. First game of this series. Look comfortable past 25 minutes.
It really did, but at the end of the day, Splyce, they have just managed to seal the deal. 37.5, and GG to them. 1-0 on the series.